What exactly is a ballast box, and why should you have one for your subcompact tractor? Well, in this inaugural episode of the brand new Cowboy Steve YouTube channel, I'll explain to you why I'm making one and how I'm going to use it. Stick around. Hey there, family and friends. Cowboy Steve here. And before I get into my ballast box build, I thought I would explain a little bit why it is you need ballast on a tractor. This is a relatively small subcompact tractor. It's the Emax 25 from Mahindra. I've had it for probably 8 or 9 years now, and I just used the crap out of this thing. It came with the front end loader. I didn't really anticipate a lot of use for it until after I got it, and then I started using it quite a bit. One of the things about using a front end loader is understanding the balance on a tractor. What you want to do is try to keep your weight under control by keeping it balanced on the frame itself. With how far that bucket sticks out in front of the front axle, and with a weight capacity of about 900 pounds, you can see where it would put a lot of pressure on the front axle if there wasn't any counterweights in the rear end. What will happen is the center of gravity will move from right around the middle to the rear of the tractor up to the front over the axle, and actually the front axle acts as a pivot or a fulcrum, and it puts undue pressure on that front end. Pressure and weight that wasn't really designed to take. To offset that, you want to balance weight on the back end somehow. One way, especially in larger tractors, is to fill the rear tires with fluid. I could do that and it would add some weight to the tractor, but this tractor is already kind of heavy for mowing. Here in my part of Ohio, the ground can get really mushy really fast when it's damp or wet. And I already have trouble with this tractor leaving ruts at times. So adding more weight into the tires probably isn't the best idea for me. And really these tires aren't that big, so I don't know how much weight it would really add. Another way you can add weight to the back end is to leave an implement on the back end, like box scraper maybe, or a mowing deck, or even tractors this small can come with a 3-point hitch mounted backhoe. The downside of doing that is they stick out behind the tractor quite a bit. Not so much the box scraper, but the backhoe and the mower will limit your maneuverability because of how far it sticks out behind the tractor. A third way you can do it is to mount a rack on your 3-point hitch and use some suitcase weights, which is more traditionally what you see on full-size farm tractors, especially on the front end, because a lot of times they need to keep the weight down, or they need the weight on the front end because of how much pressure is being put on the drawbar in the back. The fourth way is to build or buy a ballast box. I'm building mine. I'm figuring I can get a 400-pound ballast on the rear end for about $200. You can also buy them. They make prefabbed ballast boxes. It's just kind of a metal shell, and you can fill with stone, you can fill it with cement, whatever. But they start at around $300 and go up. They mount on your 3-point hitch or your quick connect. Now I'm designing one that's just going to be basically a box full of cement, and that weight will actually sit back almost as far behind the rear axle as the bucket does on the front axle. And what that does is it helps keep the weight balanced on the frame, which also is going to help you control whatever weight you've got in the front end. Having extra weight in the back end doesn't really affect the tractor that much because the back end is designed to have that extra weight on it. If you don't have the weight on the back end, you can damage the front axle, which I have done. You can also lose traction easier with your rear tires because it takes pressure off the back end because, like I said, that front axle acts like a fulcrum or a pivot point. By adding about 400 pounds, it's going to be close to 3 feet behind the rear axles. It's going to give me more than enough counterbalance for anything that I can lift with that front bucket. That being said, let's get into my design and build itself. Started out making the ballast box with a box. This is just a frame or a form made out of 2x12s. They're 2x12s that I had laying around the shop from another project. Also had some scrap plywood that I was able to use to put on for the bottom. I also had a lot of deck screws that I was able to take out of other projects and reuse. Helps offset the cost. So this is the beginning of my ballast box build. So far I've only had to use stuff I've had laying around the shop. So I've been able to repurpose some screws, repurpose some wood from other projects that I no longer needed. I actually made some stairs for my mother out of some 2x12s. When she had surgery and had limited mobility, we made stairs that had very low rises on them. When she didn't need that anymore, I brought the steps home. Now I'm going to repurpose them for this project, or part of the wood anyway. And that's a good thing, because as expensive as wood is right now, and it's in February of 2022, that's probably a good thing. Now this is actually not going to be just a form, it's going to be part of the actual ballast box itself. I will leave all the wood on the ballast box. And this is just simply so I have a nice surface if I want to mount some additional things onto the ballast box, like maybe some tool holders or a chainsaw holder or something like that. If I choose not to put them on the inside, I will have a nice solid surface to mount that kind of stuff on. If you look in the bottom here, there's a couple of 2x4s, and I put these in because I want to put casters on my ballast box. That way, when it's not being used, I can move it around in my shop or barn as I need without having to hook it up to the tractor all the time. So this is the bottom half. And actually, if I can't find any more 2x12s here in the shop, I have to go buy some more 2x4, another 2x12, and there'll be another 2x12 stacked on top of that. So far, the only thing I've had to purchase is my drawbar. That's going to go across the box and connects to my quick hitch. Here you can kind of get an idea of how I've got it set up. I'm not real sure what the offset's going to be yet. I made it quite a bit narrower than the quick connect, just because I didn't want there to be any interference depending on how high I ended up bringing the sides. Because if you notice, the distance between this point and this point is quite a bit narrower. I think it's close to 22 inches. So I tried to make my box just about that distance. Once I get the second part of the box finished, then we'll work on cutting out the openings for the drawbar to go through. And actually, hopefully anyway, I'll be able to get a decent size fit on that. What I'm working on here is laying out where I need to drill my holes for the drawbar. I already have the other side done. It was painful to watch, so I'm going to go with showing side number 2. Even with my notes off to the side, I'm constantly second guessing myself, so I'm double and triple checking my measurements. The drawbar doesn't need to be perfectly level, but the more level the better. Get my set holes nail. I couldn't find my nail setter or my center punch. The drawbar is right at a 1/2 inch in diameter, so I'm able to use a 1/2 inch drill bit to make the initial 3 holes. Then I use the reciprocating saw to clean up the holes a little bit. didn't quite make it the first time. So we'll make some slight adjustments. Now that's a little better. Nice snug fit, but not too snug. So we get it up to the tractor and we have a problem. It's a little too tall. So we need to make some cuts. Ran into a slight problem working on my ballast box. One of the measurements I forgot to take into consideration when I inserted the drawbar is the distance from the drawbar to the top of the ballast box. And because of that, I was too high over here where the quick connect hitch would have to come through to grab the drawbar. So what I ended up doing was having to cut 2 inches off the top of the box. So now that it is a more manageable distance in here, and I don't have to be exactly perfect when I'm trying to hook it up with the tractor. So the lesson learned is don't get in such a big freaking hurry. I double checked all my other measurements except for that one. Live and learn. Well, we got fixed. Here ends the first part of my ballast box build. In part 2, we're going to look into how I'm going to mount some tool holders inside. I decided to put them on the inside instead of the outside. Also going to cut some rebar and get it welded in, provide some extra support on the inside. Going to add casters to the bottom. And I've also got a trailer hitch that I'm going to mount to the bottom in case I need to take a trailer with me somewhere. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in part 2.